Hello, my name is Shakira Kwabe and I'm in civil society. I would like my fellow participants to also introduce themselves. We'll start this side.
Lona uThemba kwaShabangu.
Olokumayo Sipompanza ngiqhamuka ngise-Orlando East.
I'm Thabang Mputle ene ke tswa ko Centurion.
I'm
Makawara Matlodi. I'm the National Assistant Manager with the Electoral Commission, responsible for stakeholder liaison and civic education.
I'm Thembale Ntuli from Diepkloof, Soweto.
Right. The elections are around the corner, but these are unprecedented times as we also have the COVID-19 pandemic. So people are not only concerned about whether these elections are going to be free and fair, but also will they be safe? South Africans are concerned about the health protocols at voting stations, and rightfully so. While casting your vote, will you be catching something else? Surely there will be a number of people who would love to come and participate and cast their vote during the elections, but might be scared of contracting COVID-19. So can we say this still constitutes a free and fair elections?
Perhaps if I may start there to give a background in terms of what we have done as the Electoral Commission to ensure that our voting stations are not super spreaders of COVID-19. As soon as COVID hit our shores in 2020, I think it was at around March, we had a number of by-elections which were postponed because at the time nobody knew how to deal with this new virus. However, in the period where these elections were postponed, we developed what we call voting station safety, COVID-19 safety protocols. And these indeed were put to the test when we first had by-elections in COVID in South Africa in November last year and December. In fact, in the first by-election during COVID, we had a total of 95 by-elections happening on the same day. Now, these voting station COVID-19 safety protocols include the assurance that everybody who is within the vicinity of the voting station is wearing a mask and wearing it properly, like my brother there. And we've seen this, COVID-19 protocols work. During the first by-elections we had 95 in total, as I indicated earlier. We did not have any incidents of COVID happening at our voting stations. We then again put the same COVID, of course with improvement in our December by-elections, and indeed even during the December by-elections, we've not had incidents of COVID-19 happening at our voting stations. So based on the systems put in place, systems which have been tested, we are confident as the Electoral Commission that indeed our voting stations would not be super spreaders of COVID-19.
How does everyone feel about the idea of still? Yes.
Based on the economy, I'm not normal mark voters, we just using the papers, right?
Yeah.
So what if then I'm infected, then automatically I'm going to use the paper. Yeah. Then you come use the paper as well. Automatically I'm going to spreading it. Am I correct?
No, you're not. Remember when you enter the voting station, we sanitize your hands to make sure that if you came with a virus, it gets disinfected before you enter the voting station. So anything that you're going to touch in the voting station, you will touch with disinfected hands. Remember, we're saying as you enter the voting station, in terms of these protocols, you then get disinfected first.
What I would like to know again is there won't be stories about if you're not vaccinated, you're not going to be eligible to vote. So
fortunately, thank you for bringing up this question. Fortunately enough, vaccination is not a requirement for voter participation. So whether vaccinated or not, you will, it's not an issue.
It's not an issue
when it comes to voting.
So yeah, even testing, you're not going to be asked if you didn't test, you're not going to vote.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Sharp.
Yes, that is not a requirement for voting. The requirement for voting is that you've got to be registered as a voter. You've got to the voting station, go to the voting station where you are registered, and ensure that you mask up, of course.
Oh yeah.
And you produce your ID, definitely. Thank you so much. So those are the requirements. COVID-19 is nowhere in our process in terms of the vaccination itself.
Okay.
Okay. Quick question: is there any reason why we never looked at kind of like a virtual way of conducting the votes for those people that feel that they won't be safe?
It's a very good question. You would remember that we implement laws that were made by Parliament as the Electoral Commission. All our activities, in fact, are as per the national legislation. So what happens is that a proposal was at some point made for us to move to online voting. And political parties said, no, we are not ready as a country to have online voting. As a result, that is why online voting is not part of our systems, our electoral systems as we speak. It is something that Parliament has to decide upon. You'd remember that in June last year, Parliament has been given a task by the Concord to go and review our electoral systems to ensure that even independents are able to participate in our national and provincial elections. So you see, that is where such decisions would have to be made, not by the Electoral Commission, but by Parliament, of course, through a consultative process with the community.
Yeah. Because the way that you are picturing it is actually very different from how I would have pictured the whole virtual voting thing, right?
Okay.
So you are going, cool, this thing is happening online, right?
Yes.
For me, I think there could have been other ways, right, of like doing it. For instance, like USSD, for instance. The whole system that, and what I like about USSD is that it's very accessible. It's the *120 whatever thing. You don't need a smartphone to do that. It could have just been a simple system where it's like, okay, cool, for you to vote for, or do we feel that it wouldn't have been a fair, or like maybe on like the administration side, was it going to be a nightmare? Maybe, I don't know.
Look, like I said, it is. Look, we currently, yes, we currently have.
So yeah, to interject, like you as the Electoral Commission, like would you be ready for virtual voting? Like if it were to say, yeah, tomorrow we can start.
It can't happen tomorrow because remember there are security features that must be taken into consideration. Similarly with any.
But you as a commission, are you confident enough that you can run elections that are virtual?
Obviously, we'll have to be given time to prepare ourselves.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I can't say if they were to say tomorrow go and run elections online, we'll be able to do that. We'd have to be given time to ensure
prepare.
that the cyber security, for instance.
So then again, I would like to know if you don't bring a mask, can you still vote?
Unfortunately, no mask, no entry to the voting station.
So you see, somehow it also affects that number of voting again.
Yes,
that's discrimination.
But
what if people just
vote,
don't like?
Don't we? So we can give you a mask.
Okay, let's say he says it's discrimination.
Yeah, it's more like a discrimination.
Currently, remember the things that we're doing. It's in terms of national legislation. If you go to ShopRite today, they will not allow you to enter without a mask.
Absolutely.
If you go to, in fact, any other public institution, it's not supposed to allow you to enter without a mask.
I'm interested here.
Yeah.
Since now you are admitting that you are prepared, right?
Yes.
To go for elections and have the country voting, right?
Yes.
So a very interesting question is this: why, in the first place, you bothered yourself with the Commission of Inquiry by Dr. Former Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke. So why did you have to take all those findings, take them to court in order for you to postpone? But now today, you are coming back, you are comfortable, you are prepared. So why the wastage of that money? Because instituting any legal action to court is a cost of money, right? That would have been saved again, maybe to fund or to add more resources. But the question basically is, you went to court with the intent and purpose of postponing based on what? The recommendation of the commission. But today now, it's more like you're turning your back against that recommendation of the commission. So why that dangling?
It's a very interesting question you're asking. As the commission, we also have to act responsibly. You would remember that the proclaimed date for elections, when it happened, we were at, I think it was COVID alert level 4. At the time, there was concern, not only from us as the Electoral Commission, but also other stakeholders, that we needed to ensure that our voting stations will not be super spreaders of COVID-19. And as a result, we said, because as the Commission, we don't want to make that determination, rather let's have an independent body, which is why the appointment of the former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke to say, let's appoint an independent body in the form of a judge, a former Chief Justice in this case, who would run an independent study to assess the environment for free and fair elections, such that when recommendations are made, it would not be that these were the IEC recommendations, but it would be based on a consultative process that would have been undertaken by such a study or an inquiry, which is exactly what happened.
But now it sounds like you guys were running from responsibility, of taking responsibility by just saying, let the Commission decide. I mean,
remember, we are experts of election management, but not on the health aspect of things.
Okay, but
that is why in this case we needed somebody that was going to look at the environment holistically, not just in terms of managing elections. We are not health experts at the Electoral Commission.
But now it sounds like you guys are pushing the
bodies, but there were also those issues of health, particularly since the issue was COVID-19.
A follow-up question.
Yes,
A follow-up question.
yes, sir.
In my view, I view that you guys, you wanted a conduit to violate your own act, because your act says every 5 years. Yeah. So what were you thinking? Yeah. Tampering with the Constitution, you wanted to defer the elections so that they could happen in 2022, whereas the act says every 5 years. So how do you balance that?
You see, while the Act says that we must have elections every 5 years, the Act also says we must do it responsibly. So the environment has to be assessed to ensure that then you are having elections in a safe environment. Because remember, it is not the Electoral Commission that is going to participate in those elections alone, but you have the whole country, the entire public. So we have a responsibility, and that is in terms of the law, by the way. It's something that is legislated. The act that we took to engage the former Deputy Chief Justice was in terms of the Electoral Act. Hence, it was a legal matter that was ultimately taken to the Concord to say, these are the recommendations. But we could not, therefore, implement those recommendations without ratification from the courts. Hence, then the decision to go to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court came back and said, no, you are not going to postpone these elections. You'll have them by latest the 1st of November, which is within the 90-day period in terms of Section 159 of the Constitution and Section 24 of the Municipal Structures Act. Hence, we're having elections now on the 1st of November.
Okay, if I may continue again with follow-up questions, because I look at the IEC, it seems as if in their own work, they are sometimes indecisive, right? Now, why did you have to take the whole processes of going to court? Number one, as you alluded earlier on that when it started, it was early 2020 on March. And the more we go up in years, right, it becomes intensified in a sense that you have different strains, right? Yes. And then all of a sudden you call them waves, right? So what were you hoping that is going to be better in future? You think, what were you hoping? Because your hope, when you took things to court and the commission, you were hoping that, especially as the recommendation of the commission, it specifically says that probably by 2022, around February, the cave, you call it the cave, would have been flattened. But we always move from a lower number, right? If we talk about first wave, second wave, third wave, and we're going for fourth wave. So the waves, they don't go down, they never went down. So what were you hoping going for 2020 March and expecting that we're not going to go to fourth wave or fifth wave? Because I believe this wave, the more the number it goes up, the more dangerous it becomes. So you guys, you and Moseneke and the commission, probably were pushing for us into the dangerous phase, whereby we are hitting level 4, not level 4 per se, but a fourth wave, which is more dangerous as per strain than the third wave. So what were you hoping for the better if you're moving us to a fourth wave and expecting us on the fourth wave, we must hold election other than the third wave?
As I've indicated, as the Electoral Commission, our area of speciality is election management. At the time when this consultative process were undertaken, we were, I think, in the fourth wave. You remember that. When you looked at the environment, it was not an environment that you could risk exposing people to without having done a proper study, because we are not in the area of health, we are in the area of election management. Hence, the brief to the former Deputy Chief Justice was to say, look at the environment holistically. We did not want to take that decision ourselves as the Electoral Commission because we are not experts in that area. Hence, this decision was then, it's not running away from the responsibility, but it was giving to people that we believed, even now, that consulted would be able to help us make an informed decision. However, because the law had said to us within 90 days a decision, rather elections have to occur, we needed the Concord, in this case then, to say, here are the recommendations which we accept unanimously as the Electoral Commission. However, because they have impact on the constitution or the law, we would need you then to advise us on the way forward. It's not a decision that then could be taken by the Commission without going to the courts, because then it had legal implications.
No, guys, sorry, I'm of the view that, you know, we've been in COVID for like what now? It's like over 2 years now, right? We are COVID fatigued, right? Number one. And I'm of the view that, you know, things must still be able to proceed and happen. Things that need to happen, right? For instance, a simple thing. We all stopped at a Pick and Pay or a ShopRite or whatever store that we needed to go to this week, right? Using the same systems that we are using. You sanitize your hands, you wear your mask, you become responsible. So for me, it's as simple as, you know, if elections need to proceed, in my opinion, they need to proceed. Because churches are open, aren't they?
Yeah.
Schools, life has to carry on. So in my opinion, I'll be honest with you, I honestly feel that things must still carry on. Not in an in an irresponsible way, but somehow it needs to I've attended weddings beyond COVID. In COVID. And look, I'm not gonna speak for others, for other people. I'm speaking for myself here. Maybe I'm lucky enough to have not contracted COVID. I've obviously come into, or blessed enough, I don't know. But, you know, I've sort of like had, you know, had conversations with people that have, you know, had COVID. You know, obviously we've lost loved ones. You know, we've lost loved ones along the way. And that, but I'm of the opinion that, you know, these things do sort of like work. I mean, if it didn't work, I'm at the shops every single day. My wife doesn't go to the shops. I go to the shops. I go there every day. I've got 2 kids. I'm buying nappies. I'm buying all these things. Every single day, I'm at the shops. I'm at the garage. I go into people's houses and whatnot. And I'm just of the simple opinion that if you do what you have to do, we'll be fine.
Look, I guess as we are here, I think we're speaking for all the lay people outside there, that we should not be leaving them behind, because abantu bakhathazekile, you understand? And you might be ready as IEC, but what about the next person? Ufila kanjani? You understand? So I think njabo usho ukuthi nina ni ready. Mina I for one, mina ngikho ready. Yeah, ngikho ready. Honestly, I'm not ready because I don't want to be an experiment. Because in the pre whatever ni check nothing in COVID, but at the same time, when something like a big as this, don't leave people behind. Carry them with you. so that people understand the whole process with nenza in. Because automatically, kana ngizwa khona manje running ama tests and all of those things. Abanye abantu abazi nokwazi. You understand? And the government last time said, come COVID, we are ready. What happened? Look at where we are now.
Well, fortunately enough for us, like you're saying, we've already, tested our systems and they've proven to have worked, and not on a small scale. I mean, if you look at 95 wards in one day, and this was when COVID was really still something we were trying to figure out, and we were incident-free. I think really these are systems that have been tested. But also, while you say that, as the ordinary people, we also have a role to play to ensure that if you know that you've tested positive for COVID or you've been in contact with someone that has tested positive, you need to isolate. And that is what the national legislation says to you and me. So as much as the Commission might put measures in place, without the cooperation of everyone, those might not go a long way in terms of protecting us from COVID-19.
Quick question.
I think I need to put a problem with it. We all know what sometimes our ballot paper got lost with IEC, right? So now you are saying we are ready. You understand? How ready are you? Because automatically this thing might happen.
I totally understand what you're saying, but I think we need to stay on topic and carry on talking about COVID and the elections. So, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm actually trying to follow up on the state of readiness.
Yes, sir.
Because from what you are saying,
Yes, sir.
that all your systems are in place, and from our observation of you taking the matter to the Concord, you were saying to the Concord that you are not ready.
No. We're saying the inquiry was very clear. So it was saying that Khamusineke had to go and test the environment, whether it would be safe, not whether we would be ready. That is the issue.
Yeah, but you were opposing, you wanted the elections to be postponed.
Yeah, because of COVID and nothing else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, can it be true that now that the Constitutional Court has issued a directive or maybe an order that election must be hosted?
Yes.
Can it be that you are only following that order and neglecting the issues that were initially your concerns, as with the other political parties, like the ruling party and other opposition parties? I think they were also with you. They were supporting that motion. That election
not all of them. They were divided.
Yes, I'm not saying all of them.
Yeah.
I'm saying some of them.
Yes, sir.
They were supporting you. I could count the EFF, the ANC itself.
Yes.
They were in support of that motion.
Yes.
Now, can it be that there are issues that the public are not aware of in terms of this curve that is set to have flattened? That's why we are now taken to level 2 or stage 2.
Yeah.
But is it true that the curve has really flattened, and maybe you are now instituting what the Constitutional Court has directed?
Look, whether the curve is flattening for real or not, your guess is as good as mine. We learned that on the news, all of us. So I would not speak on behalf of the Department of Health, but what I know is that these are the people that have been giving us this stats since the fall of COVID, if you may. However, elections are conducted in terms of legislation. So there's got to be a timetable that guides election activities that cannot be changed here and there, unless, of course, there is an incident occurred, and indeed the timetable was adjusted accordingly to make sure that none of the activities on the election timetable is compromised. Hence, we had registration weekend, we had the reopening of candidate nomination, and now we're going to have your special votes, and all of those activities that would ordinarily happen with any election are still not compromised. So in terms of our level of readiness, that is where we are as the Electoral Commission.
If I may ask the Commissioner a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Right. There is this notion out there, a narrative that says it's better you vote, right? Yes. Even if you are disgruntled with the current regime, but just vote, maybe donate the vote. But in the absence of you voting and you are a registered voter, this narrative says the ruling party gets to take those votes if you're registered but you don't vote. So we want to be enlightened. How true is that? Because it's very strong narrative in our communities.
Our democratic system is structured such that the votes that are counted are, of those who would have voted. In fact, we don't elect a government based on non-partisan or non-participation in elections. We would, count the votes of those that would have came to voting stations, and based on those votes, seats would be allocated to those that would have won, and those would form our government ultimately. So there is no way that you can allocate votes. In fact, I'm not even sure what to call them in this case, of those who did not participate to the ruling party.
Because they're registered now, they just go to the ruling party now.
It's not possible. Remember, every political party contesting an election is, in terms of the Electoral Act, allowed to bring 2 party agents per station to observe the voting and counting process. For instance, if we have, like we had in the previous NP elections, 48 parties that were contesting the national ballot, you would have 2 per political party, ensuring, even if it's on a rotational basis, to ensure that there is no manga business where our process is concerned, both during voting and counting. So there is no way that you can then give party A votes that they did not get, or take party A votes and give, because their party agents will be there in the station with you throughout the process, from the morning when you open the stations to the evening when the votes are counted and allocated to parties. And at any given point in time, you can go to if you were deployed, say, at a particular voting station, if you go to our system, you can even see the results that you yourself have signed and compare with the results that have been captured on the system to ensure that there is no manga business where that is concerned. It's not possible because, of the way the system is
secure.
Yes.
If I may ask.
Yes, sir.
The process that you undertook to ensure that the elections are free and fair, right?
Yes, sir.
Part of it was the commission, the follow-up, part of it, institution of legal action, right?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think in a democratic society, you deprive the citizens of South Africa for a referendum where they could have decided? Because, for example, my brother here is one of those people who feel like we could have had a referendum, because those who didn't have voice, they couldn't raise their voice on the Commission of Inquiry because it was scientific, taking a scientific direction. I understand what I'm trying to say, but a layman, for him to be satisfied with his fears that, but what if I'm going to contract this during the elections? So the question becomes, if there are unnumbered majority out of 50 plus 7 million population in South Africa, if almost 50% of it is undocumented, that they have a phobia like him of voting, and we're not sure whether they're going to appear or not for voting since they're undocumented, should we have a referendum? We couldn't have robbed them of their right to say, yes, I'm for those, voting for those who are saying, we don't feel that we are safe. And those who feel that they are safe, probably they could have supported in many ways than one to the referendum.
Civil society organizations made representation at the former Deputy Chief Justice inquiry. And civil society organizations in their nature represent the ordinary men like you, yourself and I. And such have been taken into consideration for him to come to the recommendations that he came to. So it was not only just the scientific medical inquiry. No. He looked at the environment holistically, take into account even what you are raising now. And such representations were made by various civil society organizations that if you watch the submissions, or when he made his report, you would have then picked up that it was not just the health sector that made submissions, but even civil society.
Okay, before I depart from my argument, right, let's look at the civil society.
Yes.
So do you think it's factual or superficial, artificial, their contribution? Because now, in my area, I can't remember having those people coming asking us questions or signing questionnaires to that effect with regard to, are you in the right frame of mind, health-wise, spiritual-wise, for you to face the elections? So I can't understand what is it they submitted on behalf of us. Whereas they were not with us, they were not visible with us. Maybe they might have been visible in other areas, but where I come from, I lack that understanding that this guy visited me and then he's going there to deliver some information or a representation that as a civil society, we spoke to these mouthless or speechless community. This is what we got from them, so we are giving it to you in the form of question or whatever.
I think this is the challenge that we have as a citizen, as South Africans, because you know, even now, I've indicated earlier that Parliament has been given 24 months to go and review the electoral system. That process must involve public participation, and people will participate, but not everyone. And it doesn't mean, therefore, that us gathered in here, if we did not participate, then there wasn't that aspect, because it's a requirement in terms of the law that where are the submissions from the public? You get my point. However, when that process has passed, we can't go back and, especially at this stage where we are right now, and raise the issue that you are raising. However, the issue that is critical, my brother, which is what was even raised in our initial discussion, is that for democracy to work, we need to have active citizens.
Perhaps that process needs to be a little bit more accessible.
Okay.
More visible.
Then.
So perhaps in conclusion, can you please just run us one more time through the protocols and the steps that IAC has taken to make sure that these elections are as safe as possible from the COVID?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, as indicated, we have reviewed our voting station venues as number one, to ensure that those voting stations which had small venues were changed to bigger venues. All our voting station staff will be provided with enough PPEs. Voters will also have to play their part when they come to the voting station. It's a requirement in terms of the law that they have to be masked up properly, like my brother. But before even then, before you access the voting station, you will have to have your hands sanitized. Your ID, we have a new gadget in place called the VMD. You'll come in, my brother, where instead of giving your ID to the electoral staff, you will scan it yourself on the machine to make sure that there's no exchange of documents. So those are the measures that as the Electoral Commission have put in place. However, as I've indicated, that for us to be able to manage COVID, we require everyone to play their part.
Yeah.
Yes.
I understand that people have questions.
How important is that ink? How important is the ink after you vote, guys?
The ink is one of the security measures that would ensure that a person would not vote here and then go and present themselves elsewhere to try and vote again.
Makes sense.
Because some people, are like that in nature. Yes,
So
it's one of the security measures.
One of your logistics, now we have to social distance 1.5 meters again.
Yes,
Aren't you worried about the lines that they're going to be longer now, since now we must social distance? And who's going to make sure that people are going to be following the protocols? Because now the lines are going to be longer. Imagine 1.5 and every 10,000 in a school. So it means the line is going to be extra longer than the usual. So who's going to be carrying those protocols?
There's an official who is going to be called a queue worker, managing the queue. This official will be having a gadget to also ensure that as you come and join the queue, you've come to the right voting station. We are avoiding a situation where you would stand in the queue.
And then it's a wrong voting station.
It turns out to be wrong. So this guy called the queue worker would not only be managing the queue in terms of checking the social distancing and wearing of masks and all of that, but also to ensure that indeed people have come to the right vote and they've come with the correct documents.
Question before
It sounds like you
this
guys
guy, this speaker here next to me, he just highlighted a very important thing, right, in terms of security features, the ink, right? So which means we can all agree in the absence of ink, the elections cannot be free and fair. There is that possibility that there could be a multiple voting, because the only way to prevent and prohibit multiple voting is through the ink.
No,
is it what you're saying?
No, I said it's one of the measures that we've put in place. There is also, remember, the reason why people must register before they vote is to ensure that your name is on the segment of the voters roll. So when you present yourself at the voting station, you'll be scanned with a VMD, which has a live tracking of your movement in terms of voting. So if you voted somewhere else before, it will say that this person has already voted, at what time, where you voted. But also there's the hard copy of the voters roll. where your name will be marked off. And this time around with local elections, unlike national and provincial elections, you can only vote where you are registered. So your name has to be on that segment of the voter's roll. So you can't vote where your name, you understand?
So it means the ink is completely unnecessary.
It's not unnecessary. It's not unnecessary. No, it's one of the control measures.
Control measures, yeah.
That are put in place. You see, you can't rely on one control measure.
Yeah, those are security features to make sure.
Which is electronic. There's the hard copy of the voter's roll.
And then the ink.
And then there's the ink. That shows the measures that the commission has put in place to ensure that people who
have
vote
confidence in the process.
Or you could say that, but also that only legitimate people participate, and they only participate, as they should in terms of law once, and that's it.
What if I don't have a smart card, a smart ID?
The documents required to vote, if you don't have a smart ID card, you can always use your, old green barcoded ID book.
A temporary one.
Fortunate enough, on election day, if you can't find either your green barcoded ID book or smart card, you can always then quickly go to Home Affairs and apply for a temporary.
Can I scan my green book?
Sorry?
Can I scan my green book?
Yes, then you can do that.
Even the temporary you can also scan.
Yes, remember it comes.
So how much is it gonna be ID on the day?
The last time I checked, and
I pay like 140, inside 140.
No, I'm talking about the TIC, which is the temporary identification.
Oh,
I think
so it's gonna be very cheap.
No, it was around 70 rand, but surely I'm not an official of the Department of Home Affairs, so I stand to be corrected where that is correct. But the last time I applied
these levels.
It was around 70 rand.
Right.
Mr. Commissioner,
And no, we are over time. I'm sorry. No. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. COVID-19 has definitely put a new angle on the process of elections. The IEC say they are ready. The elections will take place on the 1st of November 2021, and I'm sure everyone can't wait. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below.
For more information on the IEC, kindly visit www.elections.org.za or call our toll-free number 0800 11 8000, available during election periods. Our social media handle is at IEC South Africa, or WhatsApp hi to 0600 880000. Hashtag Every Voice Together.